Fiancée wanted a prenup but changed her mind. I, 33 male, have been with my fiancée, 30 female, for 3 years now. She works for a big tech company and makes over 6 figures. I, on the other hand, work as a car mechanic and makes less than her. I proposed to her about 5 months ago, but she wanted to get a prenup. She feels that she worked hard to amass a certain level of wealth before the marriage, and that she wants to protect it, and I happily agreed. Last night, we got a draft of the prenuptial agreement and had to disclose the assets that we wanted to protect. That's when she found out my assets are worth 15 times more than hers, and now she wants to back out of the prenup. I told her no, especially since she wanted to protect her assets in case of a divorce, and I went through all this process to make it happen. It's okay if my assets are taken away from me, not okay if hers are taken? I felt that it was unfair. She said she felt deceived, that she didn't know that I had so much money saved, and we got into an argument about why I never brought it up. I told her that I didn't know how much money she had either, and asked her why did not disclose that to me. What do you guys think we should do? Now for the top advice. Bro, if she's mad that you have more assets than her and now wants to back out, that is just more reason to get a prenup. Totally agree. She wanted to be secure until she found out she could get a better deal. Says a lot about her character that she suddenly wants to back out now. Laughing my butt off. Couldn't have said it any better. Her actions have exposed her true character. Not only does she want to back out of the prenup, but she is so mad that she hasn't even contacted you in over 18 hours. That would be a huge red flag for me. I'd start thinking about postponing/canceling that engagement. Woof. I would put the marriage on hold until you two have some really serious conversations in premarital counseling about all things financial. You might also make sure you get really deep into other taboo topics like children, work, life plans, politics, intimacy, living together, expectations, etc., in case you don't know each other as well as you think. Time will bear out whether it is a good relationship for your future. It also is a red flag that you haven't spoken in a while since the argument. Stonewalling typically not a healthy conflict resolution strategy. Good luck. This. Clearly, this couple doesn't know each other as well as they thought they did. Premarital counseling and a prenup are going to be absolutely essential for this relationship to work. No prenup is equal to no marriage. And if you have to argue about the prenup, then just end things with her. That's what I ended up telling her. It's been less than 24 hours since the argument, and we haven't communicated. OP, stick to this no prenup, no marriage. She seems shady because the second she found out, she backed out. If she continues to say no prenup, then tell her why not. You want to protect your assets and want to as well. Why don't you want to anymore? But hey, if you end up breaking up because she decided to be control freak now that she knows you're richer, we're here for you. Next story. My ex-girlfriend claims I mistreated her. The title says it all. I dated a girl for 6 months and things were great. But there were a few things about her that bothered me which ultimately resulted in me breaking up with her. They were very simple things, like her not letting me see my friends, her trying to get me to quit my job, or her failed attempts at persuading me to switch my degree program to something easier so she could see me more. The clinginess really turned up to 100 towards the end of our relationship, and I had to call it quits. I told her that I needed to focus more on myself because these years of mine are very critical for my future, and perhaps we can try again later in life. Throughout our entire relationship, I was very passive, actually. She steered the ship entirely, made all the decisions. She chose where we went out to eat, whose house we were at that day, down to the clothes I would wear and the songs we would listen to. This never sat right with me, and I always knew the relationship would end badly. She forced herself into my family way too early as well. Her reasoning behind it was she needed a good family life, because hers was not too great. She has experience with mistreatment from her mother. Anyway, she would text my parents and sister regularly, constantly asking them to go out for dinner and whatnot. I did not like this because 6 months is not a long enough time period to begin hanging out with my family separately from me. Thankfully, my family had seen through this and felt just as uncomfortable as I did. I confronted her about it, and her response was along the lines of, "Don't you want to get married someday? How else are we supposed to get to that point if I don't become friends with your family?" I had never stated I wanted to marry her or ever expressed feelings of a long-term relationship with her. In fact, I had informed her that I simply do not speculate to that degree with anything, especially relationships. Needless to say, she took this as me leading her on. Often, she would tell me how much I cannot do things, how much I cannot afford my car, cannot afford school, or how much she thinks that I won't be happy in the future with the path I'm taking. Unfortunately for her, she never knew my income, never knew the details of my education, or really had any clue what my true future plans are. These are things I keep fairly private to myself. I once told her that I wanted to move out of state. Her response to that was extremely negative, and quite frankly, hurtful. This is why I do not tell people things like that, not even my own girlfriend. Upon ending our relationship, I did it over text. I am not one to reason with people in situations like this, and I am very much a pushover at the sight of tears. However, I was far more afraid of the physical response. She had never hit me before, but I have seen the way she explodes when she gets emotional. Perhaps I just did not want to deal with the situation on a face-to-face level. Instantly, she began to tell me I mistreated her and never listened to her. She explained that, basically, by not doing everything she requested of me, dropping classes, quitting my job, selling my car, that I was insensitive to her beliefs and was going rogue. Apparently, this constitutes throwing around the term abuse. But to me, this devalues that term entirely. There are women and men who go through so much trauma with their significant others, so much pain and suffering, unimaginable pain and suffering. Why would she ever say this? Immaturity? My fear is that she will go around telling people that I was horrible to her from now on. Things circulate rapidly in my college town. Each and every day we, thankfully, take mistreatment more and more seriously, as we must do, and it significantly destroys the offender's life, as it should. But what if she continues to tell people that I was that person? What if school hears about this? What if my job does? What would the police have to say about it in the event her words make their way to them? I do not want to have my life completely derailed over a false claim. I also do not like that term being devalued. My best friend has already told me she sent him a large text containing a narrative on me mistreating her. He just blocked her phone number and went straight to me. This isn't fair to me because, if anything, I was the one mentally mistreated for months, and I never had my chance to confront her about it. It took one for her by just breaking up with her, and this is how she repays me? I have kept my mouth shut in regards to her because I do not talk about exes negatively. What should I do? Just remain calm and hope for the best? Odds are nothing bad will come from it, but more needs to be said on the topic of false claims. Was her claims via text? If so, don't delete it. Basically, the way you worded it almost sounds like an admission of guilt. You mistreated me by not doing everything I told you to do, and you went rogue. That's not a mistreatment. If it's not via text, there are two options you can take that I see. 1. Do nothing. Your character can leave it up for others' judgment call. If they want to distance themselves from you and you give your defense, so be it. Second thing you can do, try to get ahead of it. Can you contact someone that works at the school about the situation? Explain to them that she's attempting to weaponize the claim simply because you chose to break up with her. A third viable option might be to text her and get her to reply through text. I just want a clean breakup. How is that abusive? Or something like that. Her claim is an attempt to control you. Reading your email, her control is a theme. Everything she's going to do moving forward is an attempt to assert control. Best way to thwart this is 0% contact. Save the text, ignore her, and 0 contact. You may want to reach out to those close to you, parents, friends, etc., and let them know your ex is taking things badly and may reach out. I'd also let your manager/HR department know. Keep it simple. You ended a personal relationship and your ex didn't take it well, and you are concerned they will reach out in an attempt to damage your reputation. You might also want to research a lawyer, in case she makes the accusations public or goes to the police. It's doubtful she will take it to that level, but if the police show up at your door, you want to have a number to call immediately. If she goes public, you want to consult with them on appropriate responses. Just block her and everything and ignore her. You can't control what she does. But if she wants to waste her life trying to control people, that's on her. If she has any friends or family, maybe reach out to them and make them aware that she's being like this, but that you've cut off contact. Most likely, anyone in her life knows the way that she is. Especially share this post. That's pretty much all you can do. Sorry you're dealing with us. Most likely, anyone in her life knows the way that she is. You can usually count on people to have common sense. Let the loud people be loud, and at least 80% of people will be normal enough to realize what's going on. Just stay out of it. Last story is titled, Feeling Unappreciated by My Partner, female 28, and I'm male 34, not sure if I want to continue my relationship of 7 years. So, I've been feeling pretty down about my relationship recently, especially the last 12 months. I feel that my partner takes me for granted and doesn't appreciate what I do for her. I've noticed she has become a lot more nitpicky in the last 12 months, to the point I'm fearing doing things to upset her. We are polar opposite in terms of personality. I'm more introverted while she's very outgoing. I know she has hated this pandemic situation as she feels trapped at home, with rolling lockdowns, etc., but I don't see that as an excuse for her behavior. Examples are, I'm fortunate to be working from home during our latest lockdown. She physically has to go to work, which seems to resent me for. She thinks that I spend all day doing nothing, when in reality I have back-to-back meetings from the morning until I finish work. I've been doing all the housework recently over the last month. Cleaning, cooking, shopping, laundry, managing household bills, you name it, I've been doing it. I don't mind as I don't have a commute now. I have some extra time after work to do these things. However, she is really not appreciative. Rather than thank me for cooking dinner, she will make complaints. This needs more salt, or I wanted a vegetarian meal, despite me asking her during the day if what I had planned for dinner was okay. She will complain if I don't immediately clean up after dinner. This morning, she woke up in a foul mood over a trivial problem she has to address at work. Complained I hadn't made lunch for her because we were out of food. I offered to go shopping last night, but she said she would get something at work. She made a parade of finding some things to scrape some lunch together. Took the coffee I made her and stomped out the door without saying goodbye. This had been a recurring issue for a while now. We have had a lot of great experiences over the last 7 years. Traveled the world together, all my friends and family know and adore her. But this side of her when we are alone, I don't know if I can tolerate this kind of behavior for the rest of my life, and it makes me incredibly sad. When she's having one of her meltdowns, I'll repeat what she has just said to me. Another example is I can't physically visit my friends because of lockdown restrictions. They wanted to play some video games together for an hour a few nights ago to catch up. Some of my closest friends have some serious mental issues, and I always like to check up on them, especially during these times. She lost it, saying I was just stuffing around and not paying attention to her. So I repeated back that I had cooked dinner for her, cleaned up, spent hours talking to her about her day and problems, and want to spend 1 hour talking to my friends who I haven't seen in a month is unreasonable. She then said, "You always make me sound like I've been a crazy girlfriend," when in my head I feel like she's being a child and unreasonable. If I go spend that hour with my friends, she will then be pissy and give me the silent treatment for the rest of the night for pointing out she was being a brat. Sorry for the rant, but I'm just feeling really horrible at the moment, and not sure what to do. I do love her dearly, and she can be incredibly caring and loving, but this behavior is becoming more common, and I don't know what to do. Now for the advice. Sounds familiar to me. My ex had an avoidant attachment style, and you might be dealing with something similar. We were together for about 5 years, and it was great at first, but as the years went on, she pushed me away, and I'm still heartbroken. I subsidized her lifestyle and ability to pursue her career of choice, and did my absolute best to keep our place clean, even though I am extremely messy. That was never enough, and I was never enough. Her career always came first. I would feel the same fear when she would get home at the end of the day, and I just started drinking a ton, which was no help. I left her and moved to a city that I actually wanted to live in. During the breakup, she told me that she had feelings for someone else and almost immediately moved in with them, on the other side of California. You should not have to live in fear of never meeting her expectations. I'm single now, and it sucks and is depressing in other ways, but I do what the heck I want, so there is that. Same. Married 7 years to a woman with an avoidant attachment, and sounds very similar to me. I'm much happier now. This passive-aggressive BS of giving you the silent treatment, making a big production about meals, etc., is not acceptable under any circumstances. There's only one reason for doing that. It is to hurt your partner intentionally. Do not stand for that. My guess is that she's unhappy, and the way she's feeling is manifesting as this type of terrible behavior. It's perfectly reasonable for you to expect her to behave like an adult and to express the way she's feeling instead of being immature and disrespectful. I would suggest that you ask her to sit down and talk about. Start with asking how she feels and if there's anything she wants to talk about that's making her unhappy/frustrated/angry. Explain how you feel and how her behavior makes you feel. Try not to position it as, this thing you do is awful, and just focus on how you feel in this or that scenario. COVID and endless lockdown is hard on people, particularly if they're very social and extrovert. But it's no excuse to behave poorly and treat the person who you care about the most worse than everyone else. I know she is unhappy. I've discussed it at length with her. A lot of the things she is unhappy about are out of my control, so I'm not sure what to do. She wants to travel, but obviously that is off the cards right now. I've planned a trip with her next month interstate, but there is anxiety if even that will be going ahead. She is also trying to get a more senior role in her organization. She has had 3 interviews for different positions and hasn't got them. These positions are very highly competitive, especially with COVID. My dad always told me to be with someone who you wanted to go through the worst of times with, not just the best of times. This helped me get out of an emotionally horrible relationship I was in, and it was amazing how much better I felt once I made space from that constant negativity. It's funny the way it went down. Was one day she was just so mad and being so mean to me for not being able to hear her from the bathroom, and I just left. The next month was hell. Crashing at friends' apartments, then staying with family for a week, figuring out how to get my stuff together. But I did. And now sometimes I wonder how I ever even ended up in a relationship like that. But it happens. Good luck, man. Am I the a-hole for calling my fiancée lazy for wanting to be a stay-at-home wife? I'm 42 male and engaged to who I feel is the one, 33 female. We had been dating for just over 3 years and I proposed last month. Last night, after another session of wedding planning, my fiancé asked if I would be alright with her being a stay-at-home wife. At first I laughed because I thought she was joking, but she was being very serious. She told me not to laugh and said she wants to be a stay-at-home wife. I asked her why, as we both make pretty good money at our jobs, and we can't afford our current lifestyle with just one income. She says it's because I make a lot more than her, which is true as I make about 40% more, and that we could scale back our lifestyle. And then said it's been on my mind a lot, and I think working 9 to 5 just isn't for me. I asked her if she was being serious, and she confirmed that she is. I said that I'm not comfortable with that idea, and said maybe if we have kids, she could be a stay-at-home mom, but I'm not cool with her being a stay-at-home wife. But she said that I was being manipulative, since we're both child-free. But I just said that as a hypothetical, since I'm not at all okay with being the sole breadwinner. That devolved into a pretty heated argument, with her saying that I should support her dreams. But she never stated what she wants to do with her staying at home, even though I did ask. So this is where maybe the a-hole. In the heat of the moment, I said, "Where's this coming from? Why is it your dream to be a stay-at-home wife? Is it your dream to be lazy?" She got really upset at that, and had gone to her mother's and said, "We'll talk more when you calm down." I'll be real here. I don't want her to be a stay-at-home wife. I'm not okay with being the sole breadwinner, and I do not wish to support this dream. I want a partner in life, not a dependent doing nothing productive with their days. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. So she waits until you propose and she thinks she has you wrapped around her fingers to tell you her dream of being lazy and then has the nerve to say that you're the manipulative one? Jesus. That's a very good point. Up until I proposed to her, she was just filled with so much ambition, and that's one of the reasons I fell in love in the first place. Feels like it came out of left field, her sudden desire not to work. Oh man, I feel genuinely bad for you. I'm wondering, what are her friends' jobs? Like, does she surround herself with people that might have the same mindset when it comes to not working? All her friends and our mutual friends are all pretty ambitious people. Even the stay-at-home moms are very driven in terms of child rearing. This is very simple. Are you prepared to lower your standard of living solely to support her financially? Are you prepared to grind 5 days a week for the next 20 plus years at a job while she does whatever she wants to do? Personally, I'd say when you ask her what her dreams are and she dodged the question, she told you everything you need to know. Lol, support her dreams. If my husband had a dream to go back to college, I would support that. If he had a dream to start his own business in an area he was passionate about, I would support that.
But if he had a dream to sit on his butt and play video games / be a stay-at-home husband, he would soon be supporting my dream to be divorced. It sounds like you and your fiancé have very different values in life. Not an a-hole. This all day. I've taken a few months to myself between jobs in the past. It doesn't take much time or effort to shop and clean for a household containing just 2 able-bodied adults. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not allowing my fiancé to dictate what my mom wears to our wedding? My fiancé and I are both Indian. Her family has been in the US for a couple generations, and I was born in India but came here at 6 years old and don't remember much of it. My mom hates India. It hates being Indian due to a lot of trauma she faced, such as being married off very young, being treated badly for being a girl, being slightly darker skinned than her sister, and then being trapped in a very unhealthy marriage. My mom left my dad a couple years after we came to the US and was shamed by her family. She now totally denies being Indian and wants nothing to do with it. We are having a big, mostly traditional Indian wedding, which my mom is cool with, but my mom wants to wear an evening gown and not a sari. But my fiancé wants all of the family in traditional Indian attire, and this has turned into a huge fight and neither of them are backing down. My fiancé feels that my mom is going to stand out, and that she is being disrespectful but not going along with our wishes for one day. My mom feels that my fiancé is being controlling and invalidating her feelings about her identity. Then my mom's husband got involved and got into it with my future mother-in-law, and now everything is a mess. My mom showed me some of the dresses she's looking at, and none of them are attention-seeking or anything crazy. So I put my foot down with my fiancé and said she can't force my mom to wear a sari. My fiancé and future mother-in-law think I'm being an a-hole, but my mom is grateful and even said she can wear red, traditional Indian color, if my fiancé is so worried about her standing out. I thought that was a good compromise, but my fiancé feels I'm being a spineless mama's boy. Not an a-hole. I'd go so far as to say, sorry, but not sorry. Not an a-hole. I'm usually in the camp of supporting your wife over your mother, but it seems your wife is being callous for no good reason. Is she this self-centered and selfish in other ways? This would be a situation I'd be taking a step back from, to see if this is even a woman you want to marry after this. Not an a-hole. Your mother is likely already putting on a strong face to watch her son be married surrounded by a cultural aesthetic that reminds her of past trauma. I can't imagine someone I love not recognizing that strength, instead of trying to drape that trauma on them. I would keep asking your fiancé why your mother's mental health means so little to her. Please continue to stand up for your mother. Bridal entitlement and lack of empathy hurts my brain. Not an a-hole. Your fiancé isn't marrying herself, so she doesn't get to make all the decisions alone. Hopping onto the back of this comment, I would see this as a big red flag. If she can't compromise on one measly dress, which her mother was even willing to look like a traditional sari/dress, then who knows what she can't compromise on. I don't want to be the one to say it, but maybe it may not be your healthiest decision. Edit. Well, I spent all day reading through some very thorough and insightful comments and talking to my fiancé, and the wedding is off. Thanks everyone for taking the time to read and respond. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for kicking my boyfriend out over my cat? For context, my 24 female boyfriend 30 male and I recently moved in together. It's something we've been talking about, and when his lease ended, he moved into my apartment. I have a cat, Millie, who is my baby girl that I've had since she was a kitten. Back when my boyfriend and I first started dating, he made a joke that if we were ever going to live together, he'd have to get rid of that cat, which I dismissed at the time. When he would come over, he would ignore Millie, making jokes about how cats are stuck up, how much she's a dog person. Again, I dismissed this, because I never acted hostile towards her, and I figured it was just a preference. When we started to get serious about moving in, he asked if I would consider giving her away because he didn't like the idea of living with a cat. He almost laughed before realizing he was serious. I told him that under no circumstances would I get rid of my cat. I felt guilty about being unwilling to compromise, but he actually took it well and reassured me that if she was this important to me, he'd get over it. Fast forward to last night. I don't think he realized I was in the kitchen when he came home. Millie was on the couch, and I heard him go into the room and give this sigh. But before I could call out, I heard him say, "You're so freaking worthless." It terrified me because I've never heard him speak with such malice. He sounded like a different person. It was just so cold and hostile that I panicked and rushed out there to see him looking at Millie. Here's where I might be the a-hole. I completely freaked out. I was yelling, asking what he thought was doing talking to her like that. He jumped, and I scooped Millie up and told him to leave my apartment right now. He looked so stunned and started to argue, asking where was he supposed to go. I told him that I don't care. He just needs to leave. He was pissed and said he was going for a drive and slammed the door behind him. I immediately started sobbing and holding Millie. I was shaking, and she could tell I was upset and kept cuddling me. She calmed me down, and later when he texted asking if he could come back, I said yes. I put Millie in the bedroom so we could talk. We were both a lot calmer, and I felt awful after we explained aside. I'll often call Millie little names, and he said he was just trying to be playfully mean too and misjudged his tone. But he said it felt awful that I chose a cat over him, and that I called it my apartment when it's supposed to be our place. He told me he was constantly feeling second best to Millie, who I wouldn't even consider rehoming, and I had thrown him out over an animal when he's a person. I explained to him how much he means to me, and apologized for ever making him feel like this wasn't his home. I think I might have overreacted, but I just don't know. He's my boyfriend, and she's something I kept refusing to compromise on. But I also don't believe that he just misjudged his tone. Am I the a-hole? Not an a-hole, and he's lying now. Don't let him gaslight you. Your cat is going to go missing someday. This. If for some reason you do continue this, make sure you have plenty of photographs of her and you as proof that she's yours, and that she's microchipped because she will end up on the streets or dropped off at a shelter. Not an a-hole. Rehome your a-hole boyfriend. You shouldn't have dismissed those earlier jokes. On a first date, you should have said something like, all jokes aside, I would never get rid of my cat. I can't BS on the worthless comment being his attempt at being playful. He is just making up excuses because you caught him. Agreed. He got caught and came up with a BS excuse. Ditch him before the cat goes missing or worse. Not an a-hole. The way a person talks about an animal or treats an animal is a good indication of the type of person they are. After all the talk about wanting to get rid of her, I could never trust him alone with her. How do I know he won't poison her, physically hurt her, or dump on the side of the road? If it was my boyfriend, he would be gone. Flat out gone. If you don't like cats/dogs, that's fine. But when you are just nasty about it, then you cross a line. Yep. If this is how he is when he thinks Opie isn't there and is his regular mood, I dread to think how he is in a bad mood. Next story. Am I the a-hole for implying that my wife is the cookie monster? My wife and I have a 5-year-old daughter, Ellie. Ellie loves cookies and takes it very seriously when her cookies go missing. My wife is also pregnant with twins and sometimes loses track of how many cookies she eats. Last night, my wife came to me and said she ate the rest of the cookies. I said no problem and that we'll go to the store today for more. Ellie went to the kitchen for a snack and looked into the cookie jar to find it empty. She ran to me and said that we had an emergency. The cookies were missing. I helped her look for them, but after a few minutes, she realized they were really gone. I told her the cookie monster must have snuck in while sleeping and stolen the cookies. Needless to say, she's very mad at the cookie monster right now. I took her to Target, and when we were buying cookies, she said we need to get another package to hide in the pantry in case the cookie monster came back. I said that was a good idea, and we left with our replacement cookies and our emergency cookies. When we got home, my wife pulled me aside and said that I shouldn't have said the cookie monster stole the cookies when I knew she did it, and that I'm implying that she's the cookie monster. I didn't think it was a big deal, but she seemed pretty hurt, so I wanted to know if I was the a-hole. Edit. The cookie monster left a card for Ellie apologizing for eating all of the cookies without asking, and left her a cookie monster stuffed animal. The only downside is, the card and stuffed animal were surrounded by cookie crumbs, and it looks like there's a missing cookie from the jar. Now for the comments. I love how wholesome this is. Not an a-hole. Your wife is pregnant, so she's extra sensitive, which is totally normal. I hope your daughter will forgive the actual cookie monster eventually. He was my favorite when I was a kid. I have a feeling he's gonna sneak in again tonight and leave an I'm sorry for stealing your cookies card. She should be fine once she gets an apology. You're the best. One day you and your wife will enjoy laughing about this. Until then, keep doing everything you're doing because you seem to have found the perfect ways to support your pregnant wife. He may leave her a cookie or a cookie monster stuffy with her card, but he is not sure yet. Either way, this is gonna be an awesome story for the kids at the school tomorrow. No a-holes here. 5-year-olds can overreact and can get very upset over tiny things. She's clearly ticked at the Cookie Monster. I can also see your wife being upset or even embarrassed about being the Cookie Monster. Though it'd be a lot more embarrassing if your daughter had said, "I need to hide the cookies or else mommy will eat all of them." Having her be mad at the Cookie Monster keeps her from being mad at her mom. So nobody has done anything wrong, except the Cookie Monster. Not an a-hole. It was a joke. And I bet your wife is hormonal due to being pregnant, so is more sensitive and more prone to eating more food. Don't mention it again and it'll blow over. I'm not mentioning it, but Ellie's not over it yet. She can hold a grudge when it comes to her cookies. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole? My boyfriend inherited $1 million, and I want him to pay more towards the household. My boyfriend inherited $1 million early last year, both cash and investments. We would both rather have his mom back, but that's not possible. Over the past 10 years, my boyfriend has been unemployed many times. We agreed that due to his money issues, he would pay 1/3 of his take-home pay to rent/utilities. Until this past year, he also used my car when he needed. He would buy groceries, but I paid for most things. Now he has money. I've asked him to pay more in rent. His equal share would be $650 more than what he pays. When I brought it up, he suggested an extra $250, still leaving me to cover $400 more than him. This hurt my feelings, and we had a fight. He recently complained that he was the only one going to Costco, and that he shouldn't have to purchase so much. But he has made some small purchases for himself lately. Speakers, collectible skates, and snowboards. His wording is, "I can't afford to do blank." But I'm not asking for anything more than household expenses. But I know he can afford to do more, and it hurts that he doesn't think he needs to. I suggested he look at what it would cost for him to live on his own, and it would be about 5 times what he is currently paying, all in with all our utilities and such. I think he is subsidizing his lifestyle at my expense, and he doesn't think he needs to contribute money because I don't need it. I'm not saving money, and really would like to have something for retirement. I said that if he doesn't want to pay his share, then he should have his own place. Am I the a-hole here? Not an a-hole. Kick him out. He'll start paying his own way real quick. You think he is using you to subsidize your lifestyle? Oh no, Opie. He is using you. He's a freeloading, greedy cheapskate. Put him at his $1 million on the curb and go live your best life. 10 years? Ages? Tell him to put up or shut up. Not an a-hole. That is what makes it just so egregious. I know a lot of people feel inheritance should be theirs and not something put into a family account. But when I was in a similar situation recently, I used the money to help my family out as a whole, as I know my wife would do the same. During our lives, our earning power has varied dramatically, and we always just pooled our income and paid off bills and rent, etc., without making exact amounts. That is, we did what we could to cover costs and never nickeled and dimed. And this was after 2 years, not 10 years. Am I the a-hole for telling my fiancé that his best friend cannot come to the wedding? I, 26 female, and my fiancé, 27 male, are planning our big day, summer 2021. He wanted to ask his best friend, John, 27 male, to be best man, and I vetoed it. John dated my sister, 28 female, back in college. Is how I met my fiancé, and they ended it on a pretty bad note. My sister's my maid of honor, and I didn't want there to be tension at the altar. And my fiancé understood that, and John was cool with it. I just didn't want any drama. Last Friday, my sister was over visiting me. Fiancé was working, and she said, "I heard John's going to be at the wedding. I don't think I want to go with him there." And although I can understand why my fiancé wanted John to be there, I wanted my sister there even more. So I assured her that I would talk to my fiancé about this. Later, when fiancé came home, I sat him down and talked about the previous discussion I had with my sister. And to say the least, he was not okay with it. Saying stuff like, "First, not best man, fine. Not a groomsman? Okay, whatever. But now I can't even be at the wedding? No." I told him I'd rather have my sister than John, a person that isn't even related to you at the wedding, and I pleaded he would at least hear me out. He didn't. He left the house and had been crashing at John's place since. I don't know. Am I the a-hole here? Like, it makes sense to me. Blood sister outweighs best friends, right? Just wanted some outside perspective from internet strangers. I hate airing drama to people I actually know. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. You're the a-hole. Unless John did something criminal to your sister, you should blame her for not putting you first on your wedding day. Because right now, you aren't putting your sister over John. You're putting your sister before your fiancé. Edit to add. Willing to change my vote if Opie's sister has a valid reason to not want to be around John. Opie says sister cheated on John and he left her. You're the a-hole. The sister should have lost maid of honor when she complained. She was the cause of the problems in the relationship. I can't believe the audacity that she thinks she can dictate who is there to support the groom, let alone have sole control of the guest list. I'll take sweepstakes on the groom dumping her entitled behind within 3 years. You're the a-hole, obviously. Opie, your fiancé might be lucky and can avoid marrying someone with as low morals as you. Your sister cheated on John, and he is getting punished because your sister couldn't keep her loose legs closed? You're the a-hole. Actually, the biggest a-hole is your sister. She's demanding that another guest cannot attend because that is outside her comfort zone. Tell your sister that is not her wedding. Your fiancé has already acquiesced and had John step down as a groomsman. You need to shut your sister down and remind her that it isn't her wedding, and she's not going to be calling the shots. From Opie's comments, emphasis mine. To give more context about that, my sister cheated on John and he ended it. My sister says it's just too awkward to be around him, which I can understand. I don't think they would actively fight each other. The last time they were in the same room, the barbecue we had before COVID, they just stayed polar opposite of each other. But I want my sister to be there for me, and I didn't think uninviting John would cause fiancé to react how he's reacting. You're the a-hole. Wow, Opie. This is his best friend since kinder, and yet somehow, I didn't think uninviting John would cause fiancé to react how he's reacting. What did you think would happen? Yeah, obviously your cheating sister shouldn't have to feel uncomfortable. Next story. Am I the a-hole for making my sister leave my wedding reception after her son acted up during my ceremony? I got married this past Saturday. It was a very small affair with less than 70 people in attendance. I opted for a child-free wedding due to both costs and convenience. I like kids, just not at my wedding. Most people were fine with the child-free aspect. The wedding was announced a year in advance, so most people could find accommodations. The problem is my sister, who was one of 4 bridesmaids. She has 2 boys. One is 2 and other is 5. Thursday, she drops that her sitter fell through, and she asked for them to be allowed at the wedding. I felt pressured, but she begged for them to come. I told her as long as they behaved, and her husband kept an eye on them. She was late getting to the venue because the boys were fuzzy getting ready, so she's only in a handful of the getting ready pics. Fine, okay. Then the ceremony itself happened, and my nephew, younger one, began to act up during the vows. My husband and I wrote our own, and about halfway through mine, he begins to cry and fuzz. My brother-in-law grabbed him and very awkwardly made his way out, with my older nephew behind telling his brother to shush. I had to restart my vows twice due to the disruption. I was already nervous. The venue was outdoor as well, so we could hear my nephew fuzzing for a while until my brother-in-law got them a good distance away. I didn't see this at the time, but according to the best man, my sister was dramatically shooing her husband out. After the ceremony itself, my sister vanished for a while, so we were held up with the wedding party photos again. After the pictures, my sister didn't even say anything. No apology, nada. After the first dances, she finally came up and was like, haha, sorry about nephew. It was nap time. He's settled now. It was such a non-apology and I was so upset. I told her I didn't like how dismissive she was of my wedding and how I broke my own rule to accommodate her family and she didn't seem to care. She said she was sorry again, but I was blowing things out of proportion and how it wasn't as big of a disruption as I was making out to be. I was just boiling at this point. I'd asked her to please go. I didn't want her there anymore. She and our mom was upset, and she was acting like a victim. She and I still haven't talked. I've had a lot of people, mostly friends, say I was in the right. But my family seems to think I'm a bridezilla because the disruption had already happened and I was just punishing them. I'm not angry at my nephew. I'm angry at myself for bending on my child-free rules and my sister for everything, especially her half-baked apology. She's an a-hole for bringing them and making you feel pressured when you already set up boundaries and preferences for that situation exactly. Not an a-hole. Maybe it's me, but I would have told her, sorry if you can't find a sitter. Then you or brother-in-law have to miss out. I already am anxious enough I don't need to risk a speech disruption. Maybe then you'd have been made out to be a bridezilla too though. It is a big deal. A deal that only happened because she made you, which she basically did. I hope you could have said no, but then sister/family would have probably went off about that, and she'd have more drama right before the wedding. Make an exception on your day, and it's ended up interrupting your vows. She proceeds to give a pathetic attempt at an apology to save face, but seems to be vaguely gaslighting you in the process, which is why I guess you ended up asking her to leave, because who does that on a day like that? At least fake through an apology and accept responsibility. This is why I opt for eloping. Haha, can't win for losing. I originally wanted to elope, but it just never seems to happen that way. Part of the post I had to remove was that I originally told her she could bring them to the reception only, but not the ceremony. She really pleaded for them to come to both, and like an idiot, I agreed. 2 infants were also in attendance, a 10-month-old and 4-month-old, my husband's cousin's kid and a friend's child respectively. But during the ceremony, cousin's wife watched the babies in the bridal suite. I was gonna let my brother-in-law do the same, but my sister didn't want him to miss the ceremony. Not the a-hole. Shocked at the number of your a-hole replies here. I don't love traditional weddings, I don't understand not inviting kids, but it's your day. You gave people a year of advance notice, and you actively tried not to be a bridezilla by accommodating your sister's kids. She should never have put you in that position. Not the a-hole. It's unfortunate she couldn't find accommodations, but couldn't her husband just have taken care of them at home? You held up your wedding multiple times for it, and honestly, I'd want to be done with it all too. She knew it was nap time, and instead of having her child sleep it off somewhere with her husband, she brought the child to your vows so he could scream like every child does when they're tired. The wedding was over, she got to attend, that's really the end of it. The reception is just eating dinner and some dancing anyway. Wait, you're right. She probably knew the baby would get fuzzy at the time of the ceremony. Sister is either lazy, selfish, or plotting. While I understand parenting is hard, I feel like she could have managed to figure this stuff out. I appreciate your enthusiasm, but I don't think this was some nefarious or ill-intentioned thing. We don't have a bad or strained relationship. She has no reason to purposely sabotage me. It's absolutely possible to do something in accident and still be a jerk. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my mom's husband his hurt feelings aren't my job to fix? My 34 male baby sister 24 female is getting married. Our dad died when I was 15 and she was 5, and our mom remarried to Roger when I was heading off to college. My sister came to me recently and asked if I would do the traditional father of the bride stuff at her wedding. She said having me to do it was the closest to having dad, and I agreed. I was so damn happy and honored, and my baby sister means everything to me. Only, Roger is pissed and hurt that he was overlooked and wasn't asked to any kind of parent of the bride role in the wedding. Roger came to me about 2 weeks ago when my sister started doing some of the planning, and he told me he was hurt that his daughter didn't want him to do it, and was instead overlooked for a brother who, while close to her, didn't raise her like he did. And that the same could be said for her want of a connection to our dad. That he was the one who raised her, not dad, and he felt like he was being pushed aside for a ghost. He went on and on about his feelings, and he asked me to do him a solid and tell her to get him instead. I told him no, and that his hurt feelings aren't my job to fix. He said my response was very cold, and my mom is hurt I didn't put more of an effort in to encourage my sister to include him. She wanted me to want my sister to have her living dad be there for this important moment and this important role. I have family weighing in left and right, and honestly, I am pissed. The reason I am approaching this post at all is my grandpa, who I love and trust as much as almost anyone, told me I could have been more sensitive in my rejection to his request. And while he couldn't judge harshly, the man had done his best to be there for my sister. So tell me, people of Reddit, am I the a-hole? Edited to add, he and I had a very rough start. It isn't my mom's wedding, at the reception actually. He asked me to start calling him my sister's dad, because he felt it would help her frame it that way, and because I'm married to your mom now and will be raising your sister as my daughter, and I feel like it is better now that we start as we mean to proceed. He was not happy when I told him no, though he never did breathe a word to my mom about that encounter either. We had a fight of sorts a few years later, because I chose to attend a party in my dad's family versus attending a funeral for someone in his. I'm not sure about my sister. I just know she never ever liked him calling himself her dad, and she never saw him as her dad. Now for the top comments. Not today, Hall. This isn't even your call. This is your sister's decision. Have your family talk to her, or better yet, they should accept that she has made her choice and they can all deal with it. They are all adults, as is she. Your family is being petty about their own feelings. This is about your sister and her wants. You were right that stepdad's feelings are not your responsibility. Yeah. What if the brother said okay and told his sister he wouldn't do it and why? I can't imagine her response would be to then ask her stepfather. If it was me, my next decision would be to have no one do it. Not today, Hull. Although I agree with your grandpa, he could have been more sensitive. It's not reasonable for him to ask you to tell her to get him instead, but it is reasonable to feel hurt, and you could have acknowledged that. Maybe he should have been more sensitive as well, though. He didn't raise her, I did, is a very messed up thing to say about her dead father. It's not like the man was a deadbeat and left. He died, and Roger didn't come into the picture until she was 8. Did he really expect Obi to give a cordial reaction when what he said was low-key disrespectful? Not today, Hall. Your sister wants you to walk her down the aisle. It's her wedding, and it's what she wants. Period. Roger needs to stop making it all about him and start acting like that father claims to be and accept her decision. Right now, he's acting like a whiner. The last story is titled, Am I the a-hole for losing my cool on my father-in-law after he said no alcohol at my wedding? Context. Me, 28 male, and my fiancée, female 23, are getting married this summer. Wedding planning already started, and we're both paying for everything. No outside help. I get along with my fiancée's family, but my only issue is with her recovering alcoholic dad. The guy's basically a punk. He did it all. Stole, cheat, went to jail. He's the your mom was my girlfriend type of guy. What can I say? It's a small town, everyone knows each other. My fiancée is his only daughter, and she's always worrying too much about him, helping him with money, helping him with his living situation, and supported him in his recovery. We remain civil for the sake of all that's holy, but disagree often. He sat me down days ago to tell me about his journey in recovery and how challenging his experience was. He said he wants no alcohol at the wedding whatsoever. I was taken aback. I said that's not gonna work for me and my family. He said it's okay, we can have alcohol after the wedding is over. So after everyone has left? Absolutely not. I told him I'm sorry if he has an issue with alcohol at the wedding, but it's the norm, and he shouldn't dictate the wedding just because he thinks he needs to be accommodated. He said firmly that he doesn't understand why I'm choosing to satisfy my family, who can't spend one night without drinking liquor that tastes like urine to be my hill to die on. Funny coming from the man who gave up all he had for a drink. But let's not be so mean right now and weaponize his past. It's just one night is right. But of all nights, this is legitimately the night where alcohol should be available since, you know, it's a celebration. Long story short, he went on about me, making the whole wedding about me and my family when I shouldn't. I flipped the hell out, lost my cool and told him it doesn't get a say. We argued till we were blue in the face and he refused to stand down. When I shouted that I'd uninvite him, he shouted back that that's his only daughter and he should be present at her wedding. I spoke to my fiancée. She says she's torn on this issue since she's happy and proud of her dad's progress and wants him to be at her wedding, and I shouldn't have spoken to him this way. My in-laws calling me an a-hole for taking my father-in-law's recovery lightly and refusing to do as suggested. I am the a-hole? Someone in recovery should know that an addict cannot expect everyone to accommodate their addiction. He can stay home if it's too hard to be at the wedding. Not today, Hull. Not today, Hull. My stepdad is an alcoholic, and he never asked me about this. He knew I was having booze at my wedding, and it was up to him to do what he needed to do to stay clean. Between my stepmother, in-laws, and my mom's family, no way was I doing that sober. My wife and I are both alcoholics in recovery, and we had an open bar to our wedding for our guests. Also, an exit plan. Always an exit plan. Not today, Hall, but your another poster is missing the forest for the trees. Alcohol at the reception is the trees. The forest? You got a big forest. Think about these statements and what they foreshadow for your married life. My fiancé is always worrying too much about him, helping him with money, helping him with his living situation. And your big fight with her dad? She says she's torn on this issue, and I shouldn't have spoken to him this way. You and her need to settle the issue of her dad's place in your lives, and how you are going to settle disputes that involve him in the future. This, 100% not day Hall. And I definitely agree that Opie needs to have a conversation with fiancé. They need to set boundaries regarding father-in-law now before they get married and are legally tied together, because this could cause loads of contention down the road if hard lines aren't set in place. Not today, Hall. The wedding is about you and your fiancé. You get to decide details. First story is titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my kids what their grandfather did to me? I've been with my husband since high school, and his dad has always made me uncomfortable. Father-in-law adores, borderline worships his wife, and is very cold to everyone. I always thought the family dynamic was a bit weird, but everyone else was nice. Mother-in-law is questionable, but I love his siblings. I got pregnant right after high school and we needed financial help. Around the same time, mother-in-law was diagnosed with late-stage cancer and the prognosis was not great. Father-in-law was devastated. I mean, he pretty much stopped speaking to anyone but her. Mother-in-law has always been vain, and she had a nervous breakdown when she started losing her hair. They are well off, and she had the best wigs money could buy. I guarantee most people didn't know she was wearing wig, but it was very hard on her. I have a long blonde hair, as did she. Apparently my hair was triggering her, so father-in-law told me it had to go. I told him that was unfair. He told me I could cut it or be homeless. I agreed, and he took scissor and cut it off. I wasn't expecting him to just do it like that, and it looked terrible. That was 10 years ago. Mother-in-law did make it, though it was a long road. All of father-in-law's kids view him as a hero because he took such good care of her, but I still hold a lot of resentment. My kids are not allowed around them without me or my husband present. The kids are pretty indifferent to father-in-law, but adore mother-in-law, and recently were questioning why they can't have sleepovers like their cousins do. I was honest about what he did and why I don't trust him. My kids ended up calling mother-in-law and father-in-law and confronting them. Mother-in-law made excuses and made it all about her. My 8-year-old daughter got very upset and said that she doesn't want to see them anymore. Mother-in-law swore at me, kids weren't present, and said that I poisoned them against her. I said that her own husband's actions did that. Mother-in-law isn't talking to me currently and accused me of making fun of her cancer. She always plays the victim when she is cornered, but for the most part, people are on my side. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Oh my god. Fairy tale villains have time traveled to the future. Seriously. An evil mother figure who's jealous of the daughter figure's beauty. An abusive father figure who torments a girl for being beautiful. Traumatic hair cutting against your will. They're from the Middle Ages. You told your kids the truth, and they made their own, right, judgment. As they get older, they'll find it more disgusting. Hair cutting against someone's will is very intimate, damaging, personal violation with all sorts of implications we won't go into here. If they both think it is fair and right, why should they care you told your kids? Haven't they proudly told everyone themselves? How they bravely cut a woman's hair despite her objections because the evil witch was jealous? They're not bragging about it? No, because they know it was wrong. If you don't want people to think you're evil, don't do bad things. I'm so sorry you went through that. Congratulations on having the clarity and resolve to see them for what they are and to protect your kids from them. Don't give your kids any reason to think that's an appropriate way to act when you're jealous. Not the a-hole. Wow, what he did to you was horrible. He took away your autonomy and threatened to make you homeless if you didn't give it up. Honestly, you should go no contact. I would have if I could with just him, but mother-in-law didn't know. Her shock was very real when she heard what he did almost a year later. Info, there's lots of details missing here. So other than the single hair-cutting event, what is the rest of your relationship with them like? Has the inappropriateness of that incident ever been discussed with them since? Most importantly, where is your husband in all this? What was his response to his father cutting your hair? How does he feel about you telling your children this? He never had a great relationship with his dad. Father-in-law was kind of authoritarian, but he feels bad for punishing his mom. She 100% didn't know until almost a year after the fact. She can't act, and that was genuine shock. He wishes the kids could go over, but respects my decision. My relationship with mother-in-law is okay. Father-in-law ignores me for the most part, has always been a jerk to my husband for not working a white-collar job, and is okay with the kids but isn't a kid person in general. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for being upset enough at my wife for how she reacted to a house fire with our baby in the house that I left for a night with our baby? My wife and I have an 8-month-old. Last week, I was coming home from work, and just as I was coming up the driveway, she came running down the driveway barefoot. She saw me and yelled at me to call 911. There was a fire in the kitchen. I asked her where our daughter was because she wasn't with her, and she said she was inside and to call 911 fast. We live somewhere rural and response times are slow. I immediately was scared the house would go up with our daughter inside before the fire department came. I tried to run inside, and she tried to stop me, yelling again and again that I couldn't go in. There was a fire. I went in. The way the house is laid out, you have to go through the kitchen to get to the hallway with the nursery. There was a grease fire in the stove in a pan, and the wall above the stove and the curtains nearby was catching. I put out the pan by putting a lid on, and then put out the wall and the curtains with a fire extinguisher. Then I immediately went to the nursery and got our daughter. Going back outside, my wife was gone. I soon found out she went down the road looking for a neighbor whose phone she could use. But at the time, and for a while, I was really upset that her reaction to a fire had been to run out without our baby, and to even try to stop me from going inside before the fire department had come. And that she put her in danger by not trying to put the fire out with a lid or baking tray over the grease fire at first, when it was smaller, or trying to use the fire extinguisher. If I hadn't come home when I did, I don't want to think about what would have happened. The fire department showed up, but the fire was already out, and my wife returned too, driven by a neighbor. I was angry with her for the reasons I said, and she just totally clammed up. I went to stay with my brother and sister-in-law that night, taking our daughter, and my wife was very angry with me over it, saying the next day, how dare I leave her alone after that? She needed someone to drive her to the urgent care after injuring her feet running barefoot. That upset me even more. That was what she was worried about, not what had almost happened when she ran out of the house on fire without our baby. I've been staying at my brother's for about a week now. I don't know what to do, or if I was in the wrong for being so angry. Am I the a-hole for how I reacted to my wife starting an accidental kitchen fire, then running away leaving our baby in the house? Now for the top comments. BR, aka Beyond Reddit. You need counseling, couples and individual, not AITA. Yeah, agreed. This is out of our pay grade. The damage here is immense and multifaceted. Don't let people here put ideas in your head. You are likely to get drama mongering in spite of how well-meaning and sympathetic they might be. You need to bring in the professionals. For real. When my daughter was about 18 months old, she choked on a nickel. My husband yelled for me to come help, stood there with wild eyes in a white-hot panic and asked me 100 times in 20 seconds if he should call 911 while I was doing back blows. I finally said yes, and he grabbed his phone, called 911, and ran out of the house leaving me alone with a choking child. He said his plan was to be out there so the paramedics could find our house, which is fair, it's hard to find. But the reality was he just panicked. He handles crisis professionally, but in the moment, with his own child, he just freaked the hell out. I don't feel like I can judge her or you. No a-holes here. But your wife should definitely learn some basic first aid/home safety. Does your town do a survive alive house? Our town does, and I'm sure they would allow a grown-up who needed some general knowledge and needed to gain a level of confidence in handling small emergencies. A first aid class is probably a good idea too. No a-holes here. Your wife sucks in an emergency. That much is absolutely clear, and that needs to be dealt with for sure. That said, she panicked. I don't think it is fair to hold the decisions she made against her in that state, especially considering she followed the textbook rules that are drilled into children from a young age. Get out, call 911, don't go back in. Remember how many times you heard that back in elementary school from your teachers? On field trips to firehouses, and when the fire department came to your school to do a demonstration. Unfortunately, they don't send out updates for that once we reach adulthood. That said, I completely understand your anger, feelings of betrayal, and lost trust in your wife. This is something you both should seek counseling about. The next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for yelling at my husband for what he did at my friend's mother's funeral? I, 34, have a close friend whose mother died after a long struggle with cancer. My friend expected this, but is struggling to cope. I was there for her from the first hour until the funeral. She's my best friend. We grew up together and her mother was like the mother I always wished for. My husband, 37, and I got ready to go to the funeral. He's a self-employed real estate agent after he lost his position at his previous company. Things have been rough for him for the past year, and unfortunately he is still struggling. He's desperate for work. All he has is this one nice suit and his business cards to hand out to everyone he sees. He was married before I met him. My family don't get along with him, and he claims it's because he was married before me. Anyways, we got there. He was talking to few guests, and I just stayed by my friend's side during the service. My sister came to me, berating me, asking why I brought my husband with me. I thought, oh no, please, don't get started on him being married before. Really, my sister brings it up all the time. I told her to drop it. I looked and saw him talking to guests and thought nothing of it. We went to my friend's mother's house where her family gathered. I went to get a bottle of water, then I came back and saw my husband handing my friend his business card. I was shocked. My friend looked upset. Then I pulled my husband aside and asked what he was doing. He said nothing. He had a client looking for a house and thought my friend might want to sell her mom's house, and so he gave her his business card. I covered my face with my hand from shame and embarrassment. We left because I couldn't dare look my friend in the eyes. I yelled at him in the car and asked him who told him she wanted to sell her mother's house, and why he thought it was okay to hand her his business card on her mother's funeral when she was still crying for Christ's sake. He kept saying it was just a question, but I told him that was inappropriate and just awful because pretty much every guest heard what he said to her. He said he was trying to make a living. I told him there were other ways like social media / creating a website or something. I got home and I tried to call my friend to apologize, but she didn't answer my calls. He still thinks he didn't do anything inappropriate and that I'm being harsh on him by yelling. Now for the top comments. Wow. Something tells me that there are reasons to not like your husband that are not related to him previously being married. He needs to read the room. Not an a-hole. His actions were incredibly out of line and callous. Yeah, can't really blame Opie's sister for not liking the husband after reading that. What an absolute heartless thing to do. At least wait until the body is cold before trying to make a buck off of this poor woman's loss. Not an a-hole. I'm a real estate agent, and you have to hand your cards out and network if you want to be successful. A funeral is not the freaking time to network, especially the property of the recently deceased. Not the a-hole. That is just hugely inappropriate and insensitive in that setting. You must be mortified. Edited to add, not only is it unbelievably insensitive to your friend, it is so widely understood to be in bad taste that he can probably cross anyone who saw him do it from his list of potential clients as well. Maybe that he'll understand. Your Reddit is right on the money. In the pursuit of one sale, he just torched his reputation with heaven knows how many people who witnessed him being such a crass and predatory bore. It's as though he took that scene from combining obituaries and real estate listings from When Harry Met Sally, literally. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for not trying harder to wake up my husband? My 24 female, husband 24 male, decided on one of his work days to stay up all night drinking beer and talking to one of his friends. I reminded him several times throughout the night that he had work and that he should go to bed, in which he responded that he would be fine. He finally crawled into bed 5 minutes before the alarm was supposed to go off, claiming that he was just going to rest for 5 minutes. The alarm goes off. I shake him, let him know that it went off, and proceeded to get him his clothes and pack his lunch like I always do. I bring him his clothes to find that he has fallen back asleep. I shake him hard enough to wake him up, telling him that it is time to go to work. He mumbles something, and I get up to take the dog out before I had to drive him to work. He can't drive. I come back in to find him still asleep. I shake him again to wake him back up. He wakes up long enough to look at me and then falls back asleep. So starts the repeated process of me shaking him waking up long enough to look at me, and him falling back asleep. I decide that shaking him isn't going to work. So I pull the covers off of him and drag him out of the bed, hoping this will wake him up, as by this time he is going to be late to work. He just mumbles and crawls back in bed. I give up and decide to give him a few minutes before trying again. I repeat the same process. Shake him, try to drag him out of bed, even take his hand to try and pull him up. No luck. This goes on literally for a couple hours. By this time, he is already late to work, which I have told him he was going to be multiple times, and he didn't listen. And it is getting to the point if I don't get him up, then I will also be late to work. I take an ice pack from the freezer and stick it on him. All this does is cause him to pull away and pull the blanket over top of him. I try this multiple more times, along with shaking him and once again trying to pull him out of bed. This also didn't work. I eventually gave up, because he wasn't going to get his butt up, and I was going to be late to work, so I just go and clock in. I work from home. He finally wakes up a couple hours later and demands why I didn't wake him up. I tell him I tried over and over to wake him up and he wouldn't wake up. He gets pissed off and tells me I didn't try hard enough. When I told him I even tried to drag him out of bed, he called me a liar and said that if he loses his job, then it would be my fault. Am I the a-hole for not trying harder to wake him up for work? How much harder could you have tried? I can't believe you tried as hard as you did. But what a huge red flag that he chooses to stay up all night drinking and then blames you when he can't wake up for work. Opie, you shouldn't be here. You shouldn't be questioning if you're the a-hole. Yes, so much. It is not your fault he stayed up late and slept through work. Don't you dare let him make you feel bad. Not the a-hole. Also, I'd recommend you stop getting his clothes and packing his lunch. He's a grown man and can do it himself, along with getting himself up for work. Not the a-hole. Info: I can't be the only one here wondering if this guy does anything for himself. She gets his clothes for the day, makes his lunch, gets him to work. He sounds more like a freaking toddler than a husband. There seems to be an ever-present stream of women posting about their useless children husbands.